Wow, tough crowd, man. I thought those guys would have warmed you guys up a little bit more for my session, and it wouldn't be such a tough challenge. Good afternoon, everyone. Wow, very tough. How am I going to continue my presentation, man? Good afternoon, everyone. I've been to better news. So let's see whether the conversation could actually perk your interest a little bit better than that response just now. I've been tasked to actually talk a little bit about CER, which is Corporate Entrepreneurship Responsibility, and how Innovation Labs support the digital agenda. And I'd like to take from cue a little bit from the previous panel session, where Dave was talking about corporations working with startups, and startups needing to be more like a corporate, and corporate needs to be more like a startup, and the challenges that those two dynamics face on a constant basis. So if I may, just to frame, again, just in case some of you guys are not familiar with MaGIC, we're a creativity innovation center for entrepreneurs. We look from startups to mid-stage to growth stage companies with the main goal of helping companies be more innovative at the end of the day. So let me do an introduction and some definition baseline a little bit to everyone. So when we talk about corporate entrepreneurship responsibility, it's about the movement of trying to get corporations, sector players, to be more involved in entrepreneurship development. And there you go. And Innovation Labs is pretty much designed to be a playground for entrepreneurs to try out new things with new ideas, with the right support system that is required for them to kind of build their ideas and moving forward. Now, you guys got to fix this thing a lot better, man. Thank you. Bateri habis. Sama macam energy dalam bilik ni. There you go. So I'm not going to talk too much about this data stuff, simply because I think everyone in the room is probably aware of all the things and movements of the industry and the players within the space itself. Talking about disruption, all these things are things that we are generally familiar with also. But where I want to kind of take everyone across is what Dave was talking about just now. And some of the things that we're driving at MaGIC in trying to make sure that the whole ecosystem can happen really well and really efficient too. So when we talk about corporations, and I'm using the term corporations very loosely here, yeah? Some people take corporates as MNCs or large companies. Our framing is pretty much, if you're a business entity in a particular sector and is willing to put in at least 50,000 ringgit into an idea to see whether it can fit and fuel your business or not, you fall under the corporate category in our end, right? The goal is simple. The goal is we want to help this corporate definition that we have here, if they want to innovate, transform, or find new areas of businesses. And if they want to do that via startups and entrepreneurs. And that's where MaGIC comes in. That sounds pretty cool, right? That's where MaGIC comes in. And the proposition to companies such as this is that you're not just tapping Malaysian entrepreneurs. We're expanding. So within the MaGIC network, we've got ASEAN Center of Entrepreneurship. We've got presence in all 10 ASEAN countries. So whenever what Dave was talking about just now, challenge within an organization, we will take that, frame it clearly enough, and kind of pump that into the network of ASEAN entrepreneurs that we have. Because we believe in wanting to build new, great startups, right? We've got to make sure that there's a balance of equation between both ends. And the bridging between all these sides is important because when we talk to the larger players or even sector players, there's always this sense of fear of how are they going to deal with this smaller enterprise and entrepreneurs. And on the other end of the spectrum of entrepreneurs, there's always this concern that the larger organizations are going to swallow them alive. So we play the role in trying to be fair to both parties because the main objective is to be able to create new, sustainable, great ventures coming out of that equation, yeah? So we've got a kind of a structure, but I don't really want to bore at this, and it's straightforward. We go and talk to you, we understand your dynamics, we pump that out, we manage that process in terms of curation of the entrepreneurs and startups that could possibly solve those things. We do inject some elements of capacity development if it's required, but if it's not required, then we'll just do facilitation between the organization and the startup or entrepreneurs. Now, we're designing this, and we're trying to build a soft infrastructure layer, because this cannot be done on a very project-oriented basis. And the goal in trying to build a more sustainable entrepreneurship ecosystem, a soft infrastructure is important. So we're building up a CER circle where we bring in various parties that we think that would complete the whole equation. So partners, enablers, communities are important elements within this space. And we look into areas of either building capacity, as I said just now, growing them, either accelerators or even innovation labs within that space. Now, just now Dave mentioned about the banking sector, setting up accelerators and so forth. Now, we've just spoken about banking and maybe telcos, who's very familiar with the space. But what about other sectors, right? Other sectors that's not possibly looking into this space where the possibilities of opportunities probably lies. Because if everyone is looking at fintech, right, it's going to be a competitive space. Not to say that we shouldn't be looking at fintech, but there are other opportunities out there. Opportunities that we're probably not thinking about, just because the current incumbents don't know how to go about it, don't know how to go about engaging with startups, don't know how to run accelerators, and so forth. So that's where MaGIC comes in again, to help organizations, sector players, to kind of bridge that through. We understand the aspirations that you have as an organization. Either you want to be the next player that's going to be cutting edge in your sector, or you want to service your customers a lot better. We frame that, and then we're trying to connect that with the right startups and entrepreneurs who's able to do those things for you. So we've kind of framed things into 9 clusters at the moment. We're not limited to them. The rule of thumb is if you can bring the right ecosystem players together at a very surface level even, meaning a corporate organization, a venture capital who's interested in that particular area, and the entrepreneur community itself, right? If you get that 3 combination right with a market demand driver, we will activate a particular cluster. Because people tend to ask me, Ashran, are you limited to just these 9 areas? So the 9 areas are just a frame for the magicians to actually go out and engage with organizations and kind of get things rolling. But we're not limited to this particular areas. What we're very clear as MaGIC is that we are not in the industry development space, right? We're in the space to ensure that entrepreneurs have the mindsets of Steve Jobs, meaning they're able to see the problem, the challenges that organizations pose out there, figure out a way to solve them, turn around, package, design, and curate a whole bunch of solutions that could actually deliver the right viable solution to the organization, right? So when we talk about innovative and disruption, and Dave mentioned this just now also, with regards to the Southeast Asia landscape, it's not necessarily, while there are going to be some, the opportunity is not necessarily about the most coolness of tech that is out there, but it's how you apply that tech in the most practical manner, in the most viable manner that makes business sense. And that is why when we try to encourage this whole effort, the focus also tends to be in other sectors that's not really thinking along these lines, because you've got to activate that process. We've got to make sure that everyone within the space is actually thinking along the same lines. And once you're able to get that momentum going, year 1, year 2, year 3, and moving on, you've got an environment where every corporation, every sector players who are making pretty good, decent money out there is going to be looking at entrepreneurs and startups in trying to close the loop, in trying to see how else can they hack that particular sector. And part of our exercise to actually facilitate this, to ensure the continuity happens, I spoke about soft infrastructure. So just now, the soft infrastructure was about networks. The next layer is we're actually building up an open innovation platform that allows all these challenges to be visible to entrepreneurs around ASEAN. Fundamentally, we're not limiting to ASEAN. The opportunities could lie beyond ASEAN. But what we're able to commit with the direct resources that we have is the at least ASEAN entrepreneurial community. So Open Innovation Platform works fundamentally as how I described it just now. It's just placed onto the online platform, and we're able to then use that as some mechanics to get the various entrepreneur network that we have within the region to solve those problems and challenges. It's a simple exercise of call, curate, pitch, and match with the organization. We'll even help the organization to figure out the right deal structure. Is it going to be an equity structure? Is it going to be a revenue sharing structure? Is it going to be a debt structure? You don't want equity, but you're going to put some soft debt into a formula in catalyzing this efforts through. And there's another one that we're actually brewing at the moment is, while we talk about existing sectors, right, we want entrepreneurs to also think slightly further ahead. So with that, in the near future, we'll actually be kicking off a center called Futurize Center. Futurize Center is going to be a place where we house multiple vertical innovation labs. And when we talk about innovation labs, it does not necessarily have to mean deep technology stuff, because deep technology stuff is already available within our network and communities, within the universities, within all other centers around. What we really want to happen within the Futurize Center at these innovation labs are people that's coming together on a constant basis, right? Thinking of constantly new ways that's market-oriented. Because I think if I take within the Malaysian context, we constantly have challenges in commercialization. We can build great, awesome products, especially if we talk to technical guys. Can we build this? Yes. Can we do that? Yes. But it's always about time, money, and resource. So in order to ensure we've got a very healthy ecosystem, healthy environment for entrepreneurs to come up with new ideas and grow and scale appropriately, then Futurize Center is one of the efforts that we're doing to ensure that this blending of communities, blending of ideas, blending of market-driven type of aspirations is able to converge. And the other aspirations in regards to this Futurize Center is that we're bringing in companies that's from China. We're bringing in companies from India. We're bringing in companies from within the ASEAN region itself. And the aspiration here is that if you're bringing multiple cultures together within a single location and get the streams of entrepreneurs mixing around within that, we hope to be able to get new disruptive ideas, be it digital in impacting the various sectors that's possibly out there. And to kind of culminate all these efforts in digital innovations in the various sectors, we're organizing also the Global Entrepreneurship Community event with the theme of designing the future. So we want to look at the future, get the corporate players, sector players on board, think about where they are possibly going, think about where their sectors are going, but not necessarily look internally to harness those opportunities. It's to look externally, not just within Malaysia, not just within the region, but ideally globally to be able to get the most kick-ass solution that you can get for your business. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I got about a minute and a half. If anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to actually answer one, possibly, because otherwise they're going to kick me out of the stage. Questions? No? Perfectly clear? Oh, please.
How many unicorns do you think that would be available or would MaGIC be able to inculcate
Right.
in all your systems that you have?
Okay, so my, good question. Your name, sir? Andrew. So I have a slightly different frame of mind, actually, in terms of where we try to put our targets on the MaGIC front. It's not so much about trying to hit and find the unicorns. We come from the world of view that if we're able to build enough volume of mid-level companies, the unicorns will prevail out of that. Because unicorns tend to come from the X factor of the entrepreneurs, as opposed to any developmental program that could ever happen out there. So our framing is not so much trying to target how many unicorns that we possibly have. It's to build enough mass mid-layer companies that's doing decently well, decent valuations across, and then almost nature would take its course in terms of getting that X factor on an entrepreneur. I hope that addresses your question a little bit there. 30 seconds. Anything else? It's either I was like superbly clear, or you guys were still not too, from post-lunch. Well, anyways, if there are any interests in any of those things that I just mentioned about just now, coming from the corporate sector, coming from an ecosystem builder. Bear in mind, we would love to work with organizations to build more accelerators. We want more vertical accelerators. We want more vertical co-working spaces. We want more of those coming in collaboration to ensure that the communities come together. We want to build micro ecosystems, and that's why those 9 clusters were actually put in place. We want to make sure that the speed from ideas to commercialization happens super fast. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We have some magicians around. If you've got to ask any questions, we're more than happy to address them. Thank you very much again.